In today's episode, we're going to be hanging out with Michelle Lynch from Raymond James. She's a powerhouse, over 21 years of experience coaching advisors, best practice sharing, leading divisions within Raymond James. I've really appreciated her sharing her personal story and how it's made her better at her job, made her more vulnerable with people. There's a big element of being an advisor where you can connect with people. Obviously, we need to deliver results and be great at our job. But we're going to be talking about what's Raymond James doing with AI, financial planning, and then also how can you be more strategic about connecting with your current clients, the next generation, to make sure that your business continues to thrive and grows even when money is in motion. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, well, glad to be here. Thank you so much.
So I had a brief stint as I was bouncing around trying to find myself in the industry with Raymond James on the independent side. So I have a special heart for Ray J.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. Yes. Thank you for spending some time with us.
You bet. I'd love to get your background getting into the industry. You've obviously been with Raymond James for a long time, which is a big player. So I'm looking forward to a lot of your insights on kind of industry and what you're seeing with advisors. But did you always know you wanted to be in the finance business?
No, not at all. In fact, my background is predominantly marketing and public relations.
Okay.
And so I did that for a number of years before joining Raymond James. I used to drive past the Raymond James buildings every day and got my foot in the door here all those years ago in the marketing department when it was relatively small at the time. And that's how I really kind of fell in love with the industry and started working with a lot of our different internal partners like asset management and working closely with our financial advisors on their marketing efforts. And then my career has really kind of done a zigzag since then.
Sure. What was the first role where you had to interact or lead advisors?
I've had multiple roles as it relates to interacting with advisors. In fact, all of my roles have been involved with that. I came in pre-COVID and was our employee channels sales manager, national sales manager. So I did a lot of leading advisors through the idea sharing and best practices and how to help them try to grow their business. And then following that, I went and I was the market leader for the Tampa Bay area. So I led 17 offices, 120 advisors before coming back into the home office into a practice management role.
Wow. So where does the marketing desire, when did that turn into kind of a leadership advisor interaction? It feels like those could be two pretty separate paths.
Well, I think you can apply marketing to just about every job that you do in one way or another. And I should have mentioned prior to becoming the sales manager, I actually led our network for women financial advisors. So I worked with our nearly 1,000 financial advisors here at the firm and helping women specifically grow their business. And I think that for me was probably the turning point and really being able to help advisors take their businesses to the next level and really find that passion. Unlike you, I never wanted to be a financial advisor personally. And I think the longer I was in the business, the older I got, it just became, a race against time at that point. It wasn't on my side. But I certainly enjoy working with them and helping them.
Yeah, I always laugh whenever I tell people how I got into the business. I was like, I didn't even know what a financial advisor was. It was just the only internship that was going to pay me $100 a week to show up. But nobody in my family, they never owned businesses. Like, I'm part of some of the training and teaching now. It's like, what do I wish I would have been told on day one? And I think our industry does have a pretty inspirational story we can tell to get new talent. And I sense this changing, at least when I got into the business 18 years ago. It was, hey, come learn about some financial stuff, learn to sell. And if you sell enough, you'll make really good money. And over time, you'll become a great financial advisor. I was like, I don't know if that's the billboard we want. I don't know if that's the best way to communicate it. So I'd love to hear from your marketing standpoint, like how would you communicate to a younger advisor, somebody thinking about getting in the business, like, this is really what we do and here's the potential?
Yeah, I mean, it's a relationship business, right? I mean, it's somebody's entrusting you with their life savings and the inheritances they get. You are a dream maker, right? You're helping them live out their dreams of whether that's retirement or family vacations or the dream trip that they've always wanted to go on, or perhaps, helping your children get through college, grandchildren get through college, weddings. I mean, a financial advisor is the gatekeeper to helping a person realize all of those dreams. And so it's not an easy business, but man, is it a fulfilling one when you're in it.
Yeah. What do you, with all your experience in kind of the practice management, getting advisors successful, which is obviously the retention issue our industry has, like if we can just get good people to hit some momentum faster, hopefully, 80% of them don't fall off in the 5-year window. What are you seeing as kind of like, these are the core skills? Like it's not selling, it's maybe not knowing the product, but if you can be really good at these things, that's a common denominator of successful advisors.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, there's a couple different pathways, right? So, Raymond James, we've been actually really successful in our training program. We have um, a 60% success rate over 5 years, and our trainees are a significant driver of net new assets for the firm. But I would say there's really the way anymore is there's two different tracks. There's a solo track, right? So you've got your strong rainmaker entrepreneur who's going out there and is going to be bringing in assets left and right and growing their book like crazy. And then you have those teams are increasingly becoming more and more a thing.
Hmm.
You see a lot of big firms really actually driving people to teams from a retention perspective, and also to be able to um, solve for the succession problem as the older advisors continue to age out. And so as we think about our training program, we're in the process of actually bifurcating it, right? Because the solo advisor experience and what their day to day looks like is very different than what a junior advisor on a team looks like. But to answer your question, if we're really focusing on the solo advisor, the rainmaker, it's you got to have a growth mindset. You really have to be focused on grinding and identifying who are my networks, where is my access going to be, what's my value proposition, what's my story, how I'm going to get in front of them, and then really being able to go in with the ask.
Yeah. How do you coach to like communication skills?
Well, anymore, I mean, it's no longer you sit in a room with a phone book, right? And pick up
Sure.
the phone and call all day long. And I think it's who are your networks? And I think social media has really given us a huge opportunity to expand our networks in a variety of different ways. So how do you tap into those networks? How do you then get in front of them, right? Whether that's one-on-one, whether that's group, whether that's webinars, et cetera. And then how do you follow up? Because the follow up is the key. We all know you have to hear the same thing over and over again before you actually get it and it resonates.
Yeah.
So, what is your follow up? What is your process for follow up? And then, what is your process once they are a client to be able to continue to demonstrate your value to them over and over again so they stay a client?
Yeah. What is Raymond James? How are you approaching like financial planning as this standalone offering? Because I feel like a lot of advisors, this is what we coach on a lot. Because probably about 7 years ago, I was like, man, if I'm just trying to take assets from other advisors or sell insurance to people, like that just doesn't feel like that feels like a grind. And eventually I'll get there if I don't give up. But to me, when I started addressing the head trash around, I have a process that people will pay for that doesn't necessarily have to have a product attached to it early on. That was like a breakthrough for me as a younger advisor. How is Raymond James approaching like coaching advisors on like financial planning as a standalone vertical in their business?
Yeah, so we have a platform that we call Goal Planning and Monitoring, and it's essentially runs in the back of Money Guide Pro, and it's
Mm.
essentially a financial planning tool. And so we very early on introduced that to our new advisors so that they can get experience with it, they can get familiar with it, and then they can realize what all of the inputs are that's going to give an accurate output. And so it encompasses all the things you just mentioned to help tell a holistic story. Because if I'm going to be sitting down with you, I don't want you just to address one part of my story because there's a much bigger picture that needs to be addressed. And so that's what this platform does. Um, so we've really integrated that into our process and drilled it into them that it's an important part of any discussion that you have, particularly an annual review. to walk through that process with them and make sure that they are on track. And if they're not, what tweaks need to be made. And I've had, I've seen conversations be had where a newer advisor comes in and it's like they just want to keep spending, and their meter keeps going down and down and down. And I need to have the really hard conversation with them that if they keep spending, then they're going to be out of money and they're not going to be able to retire. So it's a real tool, and it really does help have those conversations, and make them realistic for the client too.
Yeah, I look back, and it took me a while to realize I probably wasn't setting the stage very well. I think sometimes as advisors, what we know is gets in the way of trying to understand, like, what does a client think a financial plan is? And I think with my insurance background and then some of my head investment heavy background, like if you look back, if you ask my clients maybe 15 years ago, what's a financial plan? They probably would have said, oh, you manage investments and you buy insurance.
Right.
And I, in my head, I knew a financial plan was more than that. But it took me stepping back and realizing, like, oh, a financial plan, and this is how we define it in our practice, is 6 things: cash flow, investment planning, tax strategies, retirement, risk management / insurance, and estate planning. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm trying to re-coach myself that when I meet with a client, say, hey, before we go forward, I just want you to know, like, here's the landscape. Like, here's what we always need to talk about. And now they actually reference it because I gave them something to reference. And so there's little things like that I'm like, man, what I was doing was kind of working, but I think there's a better way to position it. Even if I just manage assets, can I at least paint a better picture for the client to reference forever? And
Sure.
that's where I've had to get way better at communication, setting expectations. It's a muscle that I wasn't really forced to flex early on because I was just out there cranking it out.
I understand now.
What comes up in you and your story is as I mentioned that.
Yeah, so it's the same thing, right? So it's teaching in the classroom. So our program, it's a 2-year program, but we track them for over 8 years. And so
Mm.
we have a series of one-on-one coaching that's done. We have in classroom training, and so exposing them to all of those tools and resources and making sure they understand all 6 of those principles that you just mentioned, and then also introducing them to the resources at the firm too that support each of those areas, so they know if they hit a roadblock, they know who they can contact and call. I also think another part of that too is expanding who your COIs are, right? And that should be part of the networking process, because you're always going to have, particularly as you start getting into more affluent and high net worth clients, they're going to have an army of people that they work with. They're going to have an accountant, they're going to have an attorney, they're going to have, all different types of attorneys actually. And so it's really making sure that you're, aligned, and they don't always like to share either, right? So it's how do you have those thoughtful conversations to make them comfortable and understanding that it's a partnership and that they can share that information with you, and that it's important for you to have a relationship with those attorneys and CPAs, et cetera, so that you can make sure that you're giving them the most accurate information for their financial plan. And oh, by the way, they might also have another financial advisor too. So that's a good conversation to help our advisors talk about aggregation. Okay, you can keep your other financial advisor, but if I'm going to do my part, I need to understand your whole financial picture. So let's talk about how we can, reflect that in our system here to make sure that I'm giving you the best advice and the best guidance based on the whole picture.
Yeah.
Did that
I-
answer your question?
Yeah, it did, definitely. I remember the first time I had like a client that was sophisticated enough with enough assets where there was like a couple advisors, even 3 in play. And I was like, is this okay? Like, am I doing something wrong if these other people exist? Like, do I have to win it all? And I remember that really stretched me as a young advisor. I was like, I guess that is okay. And
Yeah.
how do you talk with them and collaborate with them? That was new for me.
And I also think too, there's, and this isn't something you asked, but it's something I'll offer. I think, as part of being able to demonstrate your value to somebody, it's maybe thinking outside of the box and offering them something that they might not have thought of. And I'll give
Mm.
you a couple of examples. So, um, if you have a client who has a child or grandchild who's getting ready to exit college, right? They're getting ready to graduate and they're getting ready to start their job. Why not start building the relationship with that next generation client right then and there? You can help them understand what a 401k is. You can help them understand the importance of investing in that 401k. You can even potentially advise them on which mutual funds they should be investing in and what percentages, et cetera, to start building that relationship. This is a pure retention strategy, right? Because at some
Sure.
point those assets are going to shift. But the client sees it as, oh, wow, they're taking the time and spending it with my grandchild or with my child and being able to teach them something that perhaps I wasn't able to or never took the time to do. So that's one. Another is I would really, and I can speak from experience here, build a relationship with the oldest daughter
Mm,
and of your clients. When my father passed away 10 years ago, I was with my mom when she made all those phone calls the next day. And the second phone call she made was to her financial advisor. And I remember sitting there thinking, he's never reached out to me. I don't
mm.
even know that he would know how to contact me. And isn't that interesting that I've never had a conversation with him? Well, now fast forward, and my mom's no longer with him. She's with an advisor that I trust and who I will look forward to having a relationship with at some point in the future. So there's research studies out there that show that the oldest daughter, in particular, and that's not to discount any of the other family members or children, but
Yeah.
typically the oldest daughter is the one who's going to take on the financial affairs of the parents when they're no longer capable of doing it. So building that relationship is super important.
Yeah, my mind, as I hear that, goes to there was probably times in my career where it's like, I'd love to do that, but I don't have the capacity to do it. Like, how do you efficiently do that? Or maybe the perceived value is really high, but it doesn't take as many hours. Or then you get into like, wow, my team needs to grow. And I find most advisors don't know how to hire. Like, they don't know how to lead. Like, I got into business to solve problems, and maybe I'm pretty good at selling stuff. What are you seeing? How would you coach advisors that have this some limiting beliefs around their ability to lead and hire and build out the capacity to do some of these things?
Yeah. So certainly, once you start getting bigger and have more assets under management and more revenues coming in, you have the ability to bring on juniors or to bring on support resources that can help with these types of things. But I think having very defined roles and responsibilities is very helpful in making sure that everybody stays on task. Depending on, and at least at Raymond James, we have multiple affiliation channels. So if you're in our employee channel, there's a branch manager and an operations manager who can kind of help guide you through that growth process with defined job descriptions and those sort of roles and responsibilities lined out. On the independent side, it's a little bit more challenging. However, we do have essentially a database here of best practices that other advisors have implemented to help make that information a little bit more accessible and easy to say, okay, well, this, I don't like this model. I like this. I like this. And then they can kind of build out what's most important to them.
I had a guest on, his name is Brad Stinson. He does like emotional coaching, culture coaching. And he brought up something where he's like, you need to be needy. And for some reason, I didn't like that word. I've tried to almost say, like, I want to be curious. I want to learn from other people. But trying to lean into like the idea of like, if there's resources to be needy, I mean, ask for help, peers, home office resources. I find a lot of advisors don't use most of the stuff that's at their disposal. Um, what have you found is like that obstacle for advisors? The ones that like dive in and get everything they need versus the ones that don't do that.
Um, I find that the ones that dive in and get everything they need have a much higher growth trajectory than the ones that don't, because they're getting access to the information that they really need to take themselves to the next level. Um, it's the hardest part, right? You come in to the office and you put your head down and you got to do what you got to do. And when do you have the time to go out and find those resources? One of the things that we're trying to help advisors with is utilizing AI in their businesses to really help them find that additional time. So whether that's using a Zoom summary when they're hosting a Zoom call with their clients that automatically serves up a summary of the discussion, whether it's using AI to go in ahead of a meeting and really kind of comb through all the notes and pull out action points and talking points that need to be addressed. How can they leverage AI? And so we are incorporating that into just about every single conference that we do, getting in front of thousands of advisors to start getting that message out. Tosh, who I know you've talked to or reached out to, he's doing videos on this. He's doing interviews with the head of our AI to really try to draw attention to these resources that are available to advisors to help them save the time. And so my hope is once
Mm.
they save that time, then they'll now have a little bit more available to them to go out and figure out how can I now take my business to the next level and what are the growth resources available to me.
Yeah. And I find the challenge is them not filling that with more busy stuff. It's like when you have free time, finally, you're like, if whatever it makes you feel, they're like, no, you got to protect it.
Yeah.
And I love the AI piece. I find a lot of firms that will coach in or teach in or we'll go to some conferences. AI is part of the conversation, but it's almost this like hesitancy to kind of fully commit. The way you just mentioned it, it feels like Raymond James, you guys are like, no, we're talking about it. We're not shying away from it. How would
We're
you?
doubling down on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doubling down on it, and we're continuing to introduce. I mean, Copilot is available to Microsoft Copilot. Pilot is available to every advisor for free. It's been out there now for quite some time. We've now introduced ChatGPT as well that advisors can use if they choose that platform over the other. And we're essentially making all of our internal technology more AI efficient. So we are truly invested in it to really help advisors save that time. But you're absolutely right. It's how do you prevent them then from filling it with other things? And so I think the next part of the conversation is how are you more intentional with that extra time savings that you have to identify what's most important to you? Is it building relationships with my existing clients, and how am I going to do that? Is it going out and prospecting and trying to finding new clients? Where is my time best utilized to make a difference for how I want my business to grow?
Yeah, that's great. What, with all your experience in the industry on the marketing side, like what gets you most excited these days?
It's a great question. I get most excited when I can share an idea with an advisor and I just see the light bulbs go off
Mm,
of, oh, yeah, I can do that. And I feel like best practices are truly the best way that advisors learn because it's taking something that somebody else has done in real life and applied it. And now I just have to tweak it to figure out how can I do it for myself to do the same thing. And we're getting ready to launch a bunch of our regional meetings, and I'm going to be talking about AI, but also about the power of personal and how
mm,
advisors can really um, take something that's personal to them and make it personal for their clients as well to deepen those relationships.
mm.
If you think about, meeting with a client once a year, how is that any different than your CPA reaching out to you and asking you for your tax appointment? It's a transactional relationship, it's not a personal one. And so, if you're really going to generate referrals and you're really going to continue to grow your business, you have to really create that personal connection with clients. So, that's what we'll be focused on in the coming year.
Something you said before, if advisors want retention, they need relationships, not just performance. The way I'm wired, there was part of me as an advisor was like, no, I can just have better ideas and better performance and I'll just get business. Like it's the physician with bad bedside manner that's the best at what they do. And I think I hung on to that and it kind of worked until like I went through stuff in life and it shifted my ability to communicate and just kind of be open and relatable. That like, yes, you can be this like executing professional and reach some level of success. But I was challenged. But if I'm choosing to be in this business, I think I have to tap into something else, which is this relationship piece. And so I have this like this weird tension whenever I'm like, be friends with your clients and like, but I'm receiving, hearing everything you're saying, but I still have this like pause inside of me of just like, no, but it's about results.
Yeah. Well,
How would you
think
co-
about well, and so that's resistance, right? And so it's what's behind that resistance and that motivation that's keeping you from it. And I find sometimes resistance is based in fear and uncertainty. And I think there's a tremendous value in being vulnerable
Mm,
because people appreciate that and people can connect with that and people respect it. And so I think when you're vulnerable with somebody, to whatever extent you're comfortable being vulnerable, it opens that door for someone to be like, I can relate. Or wow, he just really trusted me with something that was important. And then it's turning that into the business conversation afterwards. But that trust, it's not transactional.
yeah. This was probably 5 years ago. I had a junior advisor on my team and I
And I'll
can,
give you a personal example.
well, I'd love that.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I want to hear, but your junior advisor.
I was on the phone with clients and I was cranking it out. I'm adding a bunch of value. Man, these meetings are going great. And he asked me, he's like, why does it seem like you like rush through your phone calls? And after I got over the initial response of like, what do you know? I had to sit and like, wow, yeah, I'm not, the relationships, they trust me and we've known each other for a while, but I had to admit, like, for some reason, that's not coming natural to me. Like, that's a weakness. I don't have to overcompensate, I don't think, but I think I had to sit there and pause. How's it going? What's going on? And it's still a muscle I'm trying to flex, but for somebody that was resistant to it, I hear what you're saying. And for all advisors listening, like, it is an important skill to incorporate to whatever degree you can. But it's one that I fought for a while.
Well, and I'll say, if he said it to you, how many others were thinking it and didn't say it?
Yeah.
And right. And now have maybe moved on to another person, or now has that seed planted in their mind that, okay, I need to find somebody that's going to really relate to me and connect. Yeah.
Good word. But I'd love to hear the story you were going to mention.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, an example of being vulnerable and how you can then turn it and apply it to your business. And this is a very extreme example. I lost my 19-year-old son 2 years ago. And one of the things that happened right away, as you can imagine, is I was flooded with flowers and I was flooded with food and all the things people do because they love you and support you and want to be there for you and be helpful. But it was too much. It was too much food to eat. It was too much. My younger son like has allergies. All the flowers had to go outside. So what we did was we opened up a donor advised fund, right? And so that then allowed people to direct their energy and to direct their love to that, which then gave me and my family time to process and then figure out how we could make a meaningful contribution in my son's name at some point in the future that would have really meant something to him. So I say that, it's not easy to talk about in any stretch of the imagination, but I've been able to share that example with advisors who've never thought about how can I be helpful to my clients, because everybody experienced death in some way or another. And so now they kind of have another arrow in the quiver of, if somebody passes away, not only can I be, call and offer my condolences, but I can call and offer a solution too, to help try to alleviate some of the pressure and stress that's on them. So that's just a quick example of how being vulnerable can particularly maybe aid in business growth as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. In the 2 years since, like, how have you? Are you to a place to where talking about it, coaching from it is tolerable, or is that still kind of something that's in motion?
Well, it depends on the day. But generally, everybody kind of handles grief differently. And some people hide from it but for me, it's I have to tackle it. So I'm trying to do a lot of legislative stuff to change laws and do that. So I'm directing it that way. But for me, it helps me in my process of grieving to talk about him, right? Because it keeps him alive. So for me, I'm very open and have always been talking about it, and especially if it's able to help other people, because then I feel like that truly is honoring him. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. And you mentioned the word resistance. We use that word a lot when we coach advisors, because I think we all face that, whether it's abrupt and sudden, something changes and we don't want new. I think our industry is interesting, like it has these seasons and these waves, from like stockbrokers to mutual fund people to manage money. And we feel pretty strongly like the next wave is like the advisor of the future is a dynamic communicator that talks more about process, that gets paid for their time and ideas. It's less product focused. Where would you, as we wrap up here, you have this 2-year program, you get exposed to a lot of advisors. What's the wave? What are you saying? Hey, if you're going to be in the business for at least 5 years or more, what are you trying to prepare them for?
It's a really interesting question. What am I trying to prepare them for the next 5 years? I think you have to be nimble, right? Because if you even think back 5 years ago, and what was 5 years ago, right? We were in COVID. So it was a very different mindset than it is even today. So you have to be nimble to be able to adjust to different situations, scenarios, market cycles, et cetera. Because actually, there's a lot of people who even been in this business for 8, 10 years who haven't seen a down cycle yet, right? We haven't seen a market. It's even been longer since a recession. So, how do you continue to keep, smart and informed and educated and prepared? And honestly, I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, building those relationships and that trust is going to help you through the next market down cycle that we have, right? Because people are less inclined to leave you because they trust you and they believe in you, and they know that you've got their back. So I think you have to be flexible. I think you have to be nimble. You have to stay informed, because the world of technology, even thinking back 5 years ago from now,
Oh yeah.
AI wasn't really a thing, right? So if it is today, what is 5 years from now going to look like? So you have to be adaptive, and you have to be flexible and keeping up with these things. Otherwise, you'll get left behind, no matter where you are in the business, new or late.
Yeah, as I look back, it does feel like when I talk to some senior advisors, they're like, "Oh, we had these like 10 to 15 year stretches of kind of doing it the same way until we were forced to change." When I hear you say what you just said, I'm like, maybe we only have like 4 year runs before we're like, we have to adapt our business and stay open minded to this like faster growth approach. And I'm a young advisor, so I'll be in the business for hopefully 30 more years. I'm like, a little fear of like how many seasons am I going to have to survive and what's coming next, but then like also excited about if I don't completely avoid it, there's opportunity there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I might even argue, as technology continues to get faster and faster, that 4 years might even condense even. I mean, truly,
They,
it's interesting. It's
yeah,
fascinating, actually.
it is.
Yeah,
Michelle,
what
I
you
really,
do today is very different 5 years from now. Sorry.
no, you're good. Yeah, I think there's an element of, yeah, there's early adopters. There's, hey, I'm going to wait to see how this thing plays out. And then there's those that just kind of like, I'm holding this thing. I fight change at all cost. And I think for everybody listening, it's like being self-aware of like, what is your tendency? Which bucket, which group do you usually fall into? Um, I think being aware of that is healthy.
I agree completely.
Michelle, I appreciate you. Raymond James is lucky to have you.
I appreciate that, Sten, very much. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have in the future. And really, really appreciate the opportunity today.
Thanks. Talk soon.
Take care.